Hello everyone, welcome back to the China Biographical Databases tutorial video series. We are very happy to have you back and to continue teaching you how you can use the database to answer your research questions. So let's just get started. Today we are talking about how to use the form query status. So this simple and easy form allows you to examine information on social distinctions recorded for members of the database. Status records ways in which individuals gained reputations in their communities, or rather modes of social distinction, such as fame for calligraphy or serving as a monk. At present, we have 285 codes divided into these following categories. We will see more examples later when we look at the query specifically. And so today, to give you an example of how you can use the form query status to answer your research question, we are going to use the sample research question, which is which painters during the Ming were involved with the Wu School or Wumenhua Pai in Suzhou. So to give a little bit of background, during the Ming Dynasty existed various schools of painting. Most notably, during the early Ming period, the dominant schools were the Zhe school and the Yuanqi school. Both heavily were influenced by the Southern Song's Imperial Painting Academy. But however, in the mid-Ming period, both of these schools declined in popularity, and in their places, the Wu school became the nation's most dominant. So here is an example of one painting that came out of the Wu school, painted by Wen Zhengming, one of the four great painters of the Ming Dynasty. Um, the Wu school was based in Suzhou, although it wasn't an specific institutional building or whatnot. Most of its members were based in Suzhou. So for this query's purpose, we will generalize that painters who are associated with Suzhou are part of the Wu school, and that all members of the Wu school are based in Suzhou. This generalization is for the purpose of demonstrating how to restrict by place in your queries. So there are many ways to actually do this. You can not restrict by place and rather use other functions to observe geographical distribution. However, again, for the purpose of showing you all how to make restrictions by place, we're going to make this generalization. So today we will learn how to run the query and use the query status form, and then also with a specific focus on restricting by place. So I want to show you exactly how to restrict by multiple places, which is a little bit more complicated than we have seen before. Now, the basis of restricting by place is this idea of index places. So similar to index years, which are estimated birth years, CBDB attempts to associate each person with an index place. As with index year, CBDB assigns these place associations based on available information, but often the data is often incomplete, and so therefore we must use this hierarchy of categories of place association based on the available information to assign a person's index place. So this is the hierarchy of categories that we see, and we understand that this hierarchy is not necessarily helpful for all different types of research projects. So therefore, CBDB allows the user to change this order, which we will show in more advanced queries. So let's just get started. We're going to open up our navigation pane, which you should be quite familiar with by now, and we're going to open the form query status. So like many queries, our first step is to choose the top left button, which in this case is select status. So again, these are all of the examples of different statuses that we have coded in CBDB. In total, there are 285, but you can use these categories as a helpful way to search for specific statuses. So I want to look at painter, so I'm going to look at artistic distinction. And here I'm going to choose painter. Like in the previous video, I showed you that you can choose the select all button, which will allow you to select all distinctions in a specific category. However, today I'm only going to look at painter. So I'm going to choose painter and select. All right, now it's time to make our restrictions. So similar to other queries, we can restrict by time and place. So first, for time, we're going to go to our time box. So either I can choose to not restrict by time by choosing the No Dates button. I can choose to restrict by index years, which will activate our index years box. Again, index years are estimated birth years. And like I've said before, that if you choose index years, then those people in which CBDB does not have estimated index years for will simply disappear from the data. So just keep that in mind when you are restricting by time. And then you can choose use dynasties. So although I can use index years and type in the year that the Ming Dynasty existed, I want to use dynasty so as not to lose that information for the people that CBDB does not have index years for. So here in the dynasties tab, I can choose from which dynasty we want to look at, which will be the Ming. And I only want to look at the Ming Dynasty. So I will choose the Ming again. Perfect. So now that we've restricted by time, it's time to look at place. So as I said before, that I want to specifically show you how to restrict by multiple places. So I understand for our research question that we actually only want to look at Suzhou, but before I do so, I want to show you how to choose multiple places. So you have two options for this. You can simply use the master list of all places that CBDB holds in the database, and simply choose your desired places, et cetera, and select. So there we see that we have our multiple places that we selected here in the place box. However, selecting from the master list may take a lot of time since there are many places that CBDB holds. That going down the list may actually be more tedious than necessary. And so, for example, if I want to look for both Suzhou and Shuntianfu, what I can do is use the Import Places button. So in order to use the Import Places button, I can search up the different places that I want to look at, such as Suzhou. So here we see Suzhou during the Ming Dynasty. And what I want to look at specifically is the address ID. So each place has its own unique address ID number. And so for Suzhou, it's 4592. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a text file or a TXT file, and I'm going to simply write this address ID in the text file. And then I'm going to look for my other desired place, which is Shuntianfu. Filter. And so here we have it. And the address ID is 303439. So I'm going to simply copy this address ID and put it into a text file. the same text file that I had the Suzhou place ID for. So just to show you, I've already done this. So here's the address ID for Suzhou and then for Shuntianfu. Now I can do this for as many different places as I want, but today I'm only going to show you with 2. So going back to the Access database, now that I have a text file with both of the places I want to look for, I'm going to go to Import Places. I'm going to choose the file that I made with the place IDs. And now you can see that I can restrict by the places of Suzhou and Shuntianfu. And I can just run this query just to give you a look. So here we have the index places. These are all administrative units of both Suzhou and Shuntianfu. So that is how you restrict by multiple places, either going down the master list, which may be tedious and take a lot of time, or you can search up your specific places, copy the address ID into a text file, and then upload it using the Import Places button. Great, I'm going to clear this now so that we can look specifically at Suzhou. So I'm going to search for Suzhou again. Again, be mindful of the dates associated with different places. So like this. And then I'm going to run the query. Great. So you have 2 tabs of information that are available to you. They are very similar. One thing to take note of is that sometimes in the status tab, we get duplicates. It doesn't look like here we have any duplicates. So in theory, the status tab and the people tab should have the same amount of records. However, sometimes the status tab will have more, which means there will be duplicates. So just be mindful of that. And as for saving, there are a few options. So like always, you can save to a specific software files that will allow you to visualize this information. So here, GIS and Neo4j. And then also you can Command A, which will allow you to select all and then copy this into a spreadsheet. What I can also do is store person IDs. So storing person IDs will allow you to use this list of people in a separate query. So for example, if I want to use those people and look at their social networks, I can open the social network query tab. Maybe I want to, again, just look at artistic affiliations. And I can go to the Recall Person IDs button. And so now you can see that all of the people that I just got from the query status query that we just ran will show up. And I can look at their social networks. So this button is very handy. That is all for today. Thank you again for tuning into the query status tutorial video by the China Biographical Database. We will see you next time and look forward to continuing to learn how to use CBDB to answer your research questions.